Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America, and I am on with you live today on April the 4th, just back from a trip to Poland and Israel. So I have been gone from March 24th, just got back yesterday after about 36-hour jaunt of our last visits in Israel, and then to the airport that night for an all-night flight back to New York, and then ultimately back home to Norfolk Airport. And I am glad to be back with you. If you can maybe detect a little bit of lower energy than normal, I probably am a little bit. I don't know about jet lag, but it was a tremendous trip. We were busy 12, 13 hours a day. Every single day I was gone. We covered a lot of territory. So first of all, let me just say thank you to CUFI, Christians United for Israel, under the leadership of John Hagee, and the generous donors who made that trip possible, because I went on that trip, all expense paid, not a dime out of my pocket except for the gifts that I paid and tips that I made and those kinds of things. And I'm profoundly grateful, and it was a deeply, deeply impactful trip. So thank you, CUFI, Christians United for Israel, and the leaders who were on my trip, particularly Pastor Todd Woolston, who is right here in the Virginia Beach area, who's the one who invited me. In fact, he asked me to go on a trip last year, and I said yes at first, and then with deep, deep regret realized I simply couldn't do it. My schedule just wouldn't allow me to do it. And I hate to give my word and then say, look, I just can't. But I promised him, I said, but look, keep me in mind. I'm going to do it. Give me plenty of notice, and I'll make it work. And so this time I said yes and stuck with it and said, you know what, I'm just going to do what I need to do in order to move things out of the way and move things around. And it just so happened the way it fell, I didn't have any speaking engagement scheduled during that period of time, which is kind of unusual. But this year is off to a slower start than my years are normally in terms of my travel and speaking engagements that I have to do. So I was able to do it, and folks. So Pastor Todd, hats off to you. Thank you, brother. You really blessed me to have the opportunity to go on this trip, because he is the regional representative for Christians United for Israel and a local pastor here, because I'm primarily responsible for getting sponsors for this, for making sure that this dinner is financed, that it goes off well. Of course, I have people working with me to whom I'm grateful, because I certainly couldn't do it by myself. But obviously, it's my event primarily as president and CEO of STAN. And I realized I had a lot of work to do if I was going to be ready for this, if I was going to be able to take 10 days away, in which I couldn't do any work on it. And it is working out really nicely. So I want to thank everybody for all that you've done. But I want to remind you, May 16th at Cornerstone Chapel, we are honoring Tina Descovich, Moms for Liberty, Kevin Freeman, the Economic War Room, and he is also the president of the Liberty Hawk Ranch outside of Dallas, Texas, which is, it's not his residence, it's a place where conservatives and Christians gather. He is a Christian worldview, biblical worldview conservative, gather together to hold meetings, to work, to do the things that we feel we need to do. Walter Hoard of Issues for Life, one of the godfathers, really, of the pro-life movement in the black community. Stacey Washington used to be a colleague with me on American Family Radio, who's now moved on and has a radio program, I think, on Sirius, if I'm not mistaken. Robert L. Woodson, the founder and president of the Woodson Center, which is, again, one of those premier organizations that has done so much for the cause of the black conservative movement and really for black folks in America. These are all recipients of the George Washington Award for taking a stand, because that's what these people have done. They have taken a stand, just as George Washington took a stand for liberty against the most powerful government on earth at that time. So May 16th, the tickets are $150, but go to standamerica.us to learn more about it. You can donate to it, you can buy tickets to it, or you can sponsor. And so those three options are available. We'd love to have you participate and come. This is our single most, let me get my grammar right here, get my brain fatigue. But the single most important event of the year for Stan's annual budget. And I would encourage you all, if you believe in the work that we are trying to do, support us, encourage us with whatever donation you can make toward it. If it's not but $25, you do that, because believe me, we appreciate and we're grateful to every single donor, large and small. So whatever you can do, we'll be grateful for it. Okay, well, with that out of the way, because that's really the big thing looming right now. That's about what now? Today is the 4th. That's about a month and 12 days away. So about 6 weeks away. By the way, and I hope you'll come, wherever you are. I hope you'll come. So let me get back to this trip to Israel. Folks, I've been to Israel 4 times now. I've never been to Poland or Europe, but I always wanted to visit Europe, primarily to visit some of the World War II sites, because if I can be brutally honest, I'm really not impressed with any European countries. I'm certainly not impressed with France, never have been, and I'm not impressed with any other European countries, to tell you the truth. I'm a history buff, so I'm always interested in the history of people and how things develop in nations. And the nation I believe that we're most closely tied to, I know that we're most closely tied to, is Great Britain, England. So I'm a little bit more interested in them because, of course, much of our how can I put this? Much of our culture, while influenced by a variety of cultures from all over the world, the foundation of our culture, of course, comes from Britain, because we were a British colony initially. And so a lot of our traditions and a lot of our principles derive from that, and from what Judeo-Christian influences Great Britain had, that we then inherited, but of course broke away from monarchy and broke away from their system, and really enhanced the Judeo-Christian principles and the principle of individual liberty, which frankly kind of teetered and tottered in Great Britain. It was a growing sense of the importance of it, but I think that our founding fathers took it far beyond where Britain ever took it, and frankly where they even got it today, because we have a First Amendment and they do not, which was an indication of the breadth of the vision of our founding fathers, that they were not limited, while influenced obviously by their British backgrounds, they were not limited by it, and went far beyond where Britain had ever gone again, or still goes, in recognizing the individual liberty and dignity of every single human being, and certain fundamental rights that are God-given, not given by the benevolence of the monarchy or the king or the queen, but given by Almighty God to each individual. I mean, Britain's tradition was that God hands down power, authority to the king, and then the king dispenses power, authority, freedom, property, whatever, to whomever he will. Our system broke markedly from that. So I'm not terribly impressed with Europe in general, but I'm interested because it is part of our history. It's part of the history of the world. But I wanted to see the World War II sites. I wanted to see, wanted to see the concentration camps, the death camps that Hitler had created to try to annihilate the Jews. And this was an opportunity in Poland to learn things, and like I said, I don't call myself a history expert, or I don't even call myself a historian, because I don't have the training for that, and I don't think I have the breadth of knowledge for that. But I am a student of history, And going to Poland reminded me that I'm a student, not an expert, because I learned things that I did not know, because I thought I knew quite a bit about the Holocaust, because I've read it. I've read biographies of Adolf Hitler. I've read World War II books on the entire breadth of World War II, World War I as well. So I thought I knew quite a bit. I believe me, I got an education in Poland. I got an education. For example, I did not know that Hitler avoided building death camps in Germany, that the death camps were built in Poland, because Hitler did not want, I mean, this is how deeply and profoundly anti-Semitic the man was. He didn't want massive amounts of Jewish blood to enter into German soil. Now, that's how sick he was. I mean, not only did he want to murder the Jewish people, but he thought that they were so far beneath humanity, that they were so poisoned, that he didn't want their blood in German soil, because of course German soil was pure. I didn't know that. So Poland was the place he chose to really try to annihilate the Jewish people. And I saw Auschwitz, where half of the Jews that he killed were killed in Auschwitz. I tell you, folks, it's my church has a prayer call every single morning, and of course I missed it while I was away, but we had it this morning. And as I explained to the prayer warriors on that call, that experience, I found myself getting emotional. And I think what's happened is I didn't get emotional while I was going through it, just, hearing the lectures and having the guide tell us what everything meant and show us the crematoria and show us the gas chambers. But I realized all of that is sinking in. I mean, I give you, last night I dreamed about Israel all night long. And when I say dreamed about Israel, I mean I dreamed about various scenarios of Israel being attacked and various places in Israel. And I just saw that in my heart all night long. I guess, 10 days of intense education on these matters was having its impact. But I cannot wrap my mind around that kind of massive evil. Now, my heart understands that when people reject God and become their own God, there is no limit to the depth of depravity to which they will sink. I understand that, but that's theoretical. You know what I mean? That's kind of a principled way of viewing it. But when you see literally tons of hair that was cut off people's heads to be used for rope and thread and whatever other use they could make of it, cut off of human beings that were slated to die, and so as not to waste anything, you pull the gold and silver fillings out of their teeth, and you cut the hair off their heads, and you take their shoes and send those back to Germany, so that if there are any Germans who need shoes, they take the shoe. I mean, and their clothes. It is hard to fathom that kind of evil. It really is hard to fathom it, folks. And Auschwitz was which is where I went, was the primary locus of mass murder. And then when you consider this didn't happen by accident. This didn't happen as some kind of accidental political evolution. They had to sit and talk and think and concoct and contrive the most efficient way they could find to kill people. Bullets, too expensive and too hard on the troops, particularly when it comes, you got them shooting children and women. the German troops were being traumatized by these experiences, and they realized that it wasn't good because it was hurting their combat readiness because it was so emotionally devastating for them to do it. And I'm not talking about the top people, because they weren't doing that. It was low-level troops who were being told, okay, shoot this 5-year-old kid in the head, and shoot that 7-year-old, and shoot that. They realized it just too expensive and too emotionally traumatizing. They thought about and tried using exhaust fumes, carbon monoxide. Takes too long, too inefficient. And they finally came up with the Zyklon B, which had been basically an extermination chemical for insects and vermin. And they realized that by strengthening it would kill human beings pretty effectively. I mean, 15 minutes, 2,500 people, you drop Zyklon B in a gas chamber in 15 minutes, everybody in there is dead. And, you use the slave labor of Jews to haul out the bodies, and take the bodies to the crematoria, and then you fill it with another 2,500. I mean, that's how you get to 6 million people. You just have that going 24 hours a day, round the clock. These are literally killing factories. But to think that human beings just sit around to think through how you kill other human beings in the darkness of their misguided ideology, and to think that this is something good that's worthy of, and to sit around a dinner, a very expensive, well-prepared meal, and talk casually about the pros and cons of the various ways that you kill Jews, and then, of course, Hitler's henchmen were the primary architects of this stuff. And once they figured out exactly what they were going to do, they just went basically, and all the German generals and all the German leaders just put their rubber stamp on it. I mean, it is hard. It is difficult to fathom it. It really is. And seeing it, walking on that ground, imagining 100 people packed into a cattle car, and that's what they were. They used cattle cars, packed into a cattle car, not for an hour or two, which would be bad enough, but sometimes literally for days on end. Some of the trips, because Auschwitz became the central point for murdering Jews. And so wherever they were, wherever you found them, no matter what country you found them in, I mean, France, all the other European countries that one can think of, yeah, wherever Hitler took over, Greece, when they found Jews, the ultimate destination was Auschwitz. From all over Europe, and the trains were coming in constantly. Well, sometimes these were trips that lasted days, and you were packed in there like sardines. And when the trains arrived, one of the first things they had to do was pull the dead bodies out after the people who survived it got out. And you pull out all the dead bodies, people who simply couldn't withstand the pressure of that kind of, I mean, imagine it. Just imagine it. There's no place to use the restroom. There's no place, I mean, you have no food. You have no refreshments. You're not, I mean, it just, and that's not the ultimate offense against humanity. I mean, that's just leading up to it. So it was, so at any rate, but we spent 3 or 4 days in Poland. It's 3 days, 3.5 days in Poland. Then we went on to Israel, and we saw, of course, the traditional holy sites. We saw the tomb of Jesus Christ. We saw the Garden of Gethsemane. We saw the Mount Golgotha, the place where we believe Jesus Christ was crucified. And where else? Obviously, you can't go to places like Bethlehem because, as you all know, Bethlehem is a Muslim town controlled by the PLO. But we saw, most of the holy sites. We saw some of the excavations where they've discovered David's house. They've discovered the road leading up to Herod's temple. We went to the Wailing Wall, those kind of traditional sites. But we also went to some sites where kibbutzim and mushadim. The kibbutz was sort of a communist idea where people lived together communally, but they've now got something that developed for people who didn't want to live that way because there were a lot of problems with that, which I won't get into. But the mushadim is where people do live together in a kind of village, but everyone lives as an individual family, and it is primarily entrepreneurial, and they do share in some strictly business activities, but that are private and not communal. So you don't work, you don't eat. So it's a community. People build the houses they want to live in and sort of construct their own lives, rather than, because in the kibbutzim, as you all probably know, they actually the children were actually raised in communal houses, and our guide alluded to some of the psychological impact that had on some of these kids whose parents played almost no role in their lives, because basically the children were owned by the group, owned, if you will, or I don't want to make it more negative than it is, but in my view, it is pretty negative. So the mushadim, but we did visit a kibbutz. They've obviously changed a lot of those practices that they found out were very, very detrimental. But these are the kinds of places close to Gaza that came under attack on October 7th. And we talked to some of those people, some of whom had lost loved ones in the process. In some cases, they had loved ones taken hostage and were killed after they were taken hostage. There was one village that one Kitsumi, was this a kibbutz? No. Oh, I don't know whether it's a kibbutz. I think this was a kibbutz. No, actually, I take that back. This was a mushad where one of the residents, a man named Omri, is still being held hostage by Hamas. And of course, you just don't know until they choose to tell you one way or the other whether the person is dead or alive. Some of the people released said he was alive when he was released. But this, folks, is nothing but Adolf Hitler and the Nazis and historic anti-Semitism, which has been happening since the rise of the Jewish people, since God created the Jewish people. That has just continued. It's really no different. It's only different in terms of what they can do to the Jewish people, because when you have your own nation and you have your own army and you have your own weapons and you have your own land and you have your own sovereignty, you can't do what Hitler did. You just can't do it. You don't have the ability, excuse me, folks, you don't have the ability to do that. And thank God for it. So, look, I've got probably 200 photographs, and I'm going to try to put those into some kind of manageable, reduce them down to some kind of manageable number, and post those online and create a slideshow that people can watch, and try to give you a little bit more specific information about the nature of this trip, because it was a very, very, very powerful trip, very powerful. So at any rate, I'm back now. I decided to come on with you live today. My wife asked me, she said, "Are you going to go on live today? You're going to do your program today?" I said, "Yep, I definitely am. I definitely am, because I've been gone for a long time. I've missed what I didn't go on. Well, really 2 weeks. Pretty much 2 weeks, because the last time I was on live was March 21st. So not pretty much. It is 2 weeks. 2 weeks since I've been on. So, but I'm glad to be back. And again, I'm grateful to Christians United for Israel. They have a summit coming up, by the way, on April the well, maybe I said April. I thought I put it in my schedule, folks, so forgive me. Now I don't see it. Oh, you know what? Actually, I take that back. It's June. Isn't it? I thought I put it in my schedule. I thought I had. But apparently, I didn't. So at any rate, but KUFI has a conference coming up, a summit coming up in Washington, D.C. You can go to their website, Christians United for Israel. That won't be hard to look up and find out when that is. I would encourage you to go. But more importantly, before I end this part and talk about a couple of other issues, I would encourage you to go to Israel. I know you may be thinking, and of course, I would be lying to you if I did not say that or admit that my family, some of my family members, weren't too happy about me going to Israel. But I heard the same thing from other pastors who were on the trip. But I believe that God is the one who ultimately protects us and keeps us. I mean, we weren't doing it to be foolish or having to, as a result of some sort of feigned bravado. We were doing it because I think most people, and there may be some who were kind of did it to figure things, trying to figure things out. I'm not trying to figure them out. I am a supporter of Israel. I stand with Israel. I've been a supporter of Israel for a long time. So I wasn't going to try to figure out whether I should stand with Israel or not. I was going because I want to encourage others and want to be in a position to say to others, you can travel to Israel safely. You can get there safely. You can visit the various sites safely. Because, remember, Israel used to do what the Biden administration was doing. Basically, let anybody come on in. And, people were coming, Palestinians were coming into Israel to work every single day, folks, by the hundreds of thousands. I'm not kidding you. They had to put a stop to that. Because a lot of those people coming in were suicide bombers. They were people who intended to commit mass murder against Jews. They had to put a stop to it. There's still a few who they are allowed to come through, but they are vetted now. Palestinians can't simply come into Israel as they once did. They just walk across the border. They had a permission to come. If they had work to do, they had a job to do, they just come across and do it. And nobody really questioned it. This apartheid state that everybody's trying to lie and say Israel is some kind of apartheid state. What a load of horse manure. Look, folks, there are Palestinians and Muslim Arabs living peacefully in Israel today, right now. We met some of them. But no Jew can live in Palestinian territory because they'd kill them. And you know what the reality is? If somehow, and this will never happen, somehow they got all the Jews out of Israel, they got all the Jews out of the Middle East, that'll never happen because God gave that land to the Jewish people and they're never going to give it up. And God's not going to allow it to be taken away from them. So just forget it. Jack, you're barking up the wrong tree. And all you're going to get yourself for that is divine, ultimate, eternal judgment, and probably get yourself killed in this life trying to get Israel and the Jewish people, trying to harm the Jewish people and trying to get Israel out of that land. You're coming up against Almighty God, and believe me, your arms are too short. I'm not but you all, I'm not talking to you all because you probably agree with me. But for those people who think somehow, like these idiots chanting at Columbia and other universities, from the river to the sea, we're going to drive the Jewish people into the sea. Forget it, Jack. It's not going to happen. Yeah. better find something else to do, because that's a suicide mission. Because you can't defeat Almighty God. But we as Christians have got to stand up for Israel. We have got to stand up for Israel. That's something I'll talk to you about a little later, because I do want to get onto a couple of other issues. And we need to go. We need to go visit. We need to go to Israel. And by the way, if you're a Christian, you've never been to Israel. Oh, this is my 4th trip. I was with one guy who'd been there 27 times. Mike Huckabee, who used to be the ambassador to Israel, who, by the way, is a friend of mine. I fully support his ambassadorship. Has been over 100 times. I encourage any Christian, if you've never been to Israel, go. In fact, pray for me, because I've been approached several times to lead groups to Israel. I've never done it. I'm really thinking and praying about it more seriously now than I ever have. In fact, while I was in Israel, I ran into people I know. In fact, the last time I was in Israel, I ran into Mike Huckabee in Israel. Near the Wailing Wall, we ran into each other. Took a picture together. But I saw Billy Brim while I was there. I don't know Billy Brim well, but her daughter knows me. And so we spoke, and I ran into another guy who knows Pastor Todd Woolston, who said to him, had been in touch with him, said, I'm trying to get in touch with Bishop E.W. Jackson, and I'm having a hard time. And apparently, I think Todd said, well, he's going to be in Israel with me. And he said, oh, well, great. And so sure enough, we ran into each other. He said, I've been trying to get in touch with you. He's not the first time. I've been probably approached 3 or 4 times. Why don't you lead a trip to Israel? Why don't you organize a trip to Israel? And I probably have enough people, who support me that I could do that. It's just a matter of me praying through, okay, Lord, is this something you want me to do? Is this something I need to be spending my time doing? Not to be macabre in any way, folks, but when you're my age, you really want to be prayerful about something that you're going to devote a lot of time to when you're my age, because you realize, I'm 73, and praise God, I'm healthy. I mean, we did some serious walking. I had guys say, man, you didn't miss a step. No, I've been blessed with really, really good health. And so all the steep climbs and all the walks and all the stuff, I didn't have any problem with it whatsoever. But I'm not going to live on this earth another 73 years either. I know that. I won't get any more specific than that. But so, the Bible says, teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts to wisdom. And the new covenant says, redeem the time, for the days are evil. So it's just a question of, Lord, where do you want me to spend the time I have, knowing I'm not getting any more back? When I was in my 20s, looking ahead a decade, I'm only going to be in my 30s with a lot more life to live. Well, when you're in your 70s, you look ahead a decade, you don't know how much more time you've got on this earth, but it's not going to be another 83. 10 years from now, when I'm 83, I'm not going to be thinking, oh, I got another 83 years to live on this earth. No. I know the clock is ticking. So forgive me. I don't mean to be macabre, but all I'm saying is we ought to do this when we're young, but we just don't, because you're not going to be on this earth forever, but you kind of feel that way. But when you're my age, if you got any sense, you don't want to waste time doing something that you're not called to do. You want to be doing things that you really feel called to do. So I'm praying about that. And if I do, I'll let you all know. And those of you who might want to join me on a trip to Israel, if the Lord leads me to start leading trips to Israel, those of you who might want to join me, will certainly be welcome to do so. We'd probably give you a year, 9 months to a year in advance to get on board with that and plan it. I'd say if I start doing that, and I know I'm using up more time on this issue, but if I start doing that, I'd probably be looking at taking, I think, smaller groups, more intimate groups than I went just now. I mean, they took a group of 35 pastors. Whew, boy, that's a lot of people. I'd be looking more like 20 because you have time to really get to know people and spend time with people. If you're together for 10 days with 20 people, in fact, I did lead a group, although I didn't pay for the trip. I mean, they didn't. This was another one of those deals where somebody reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to send a group of predominantly black pastors to Israel. Would you be willing to organize that?" And I said, "Sure, I would." It's predominantly, not exclusively, because I don't like that. I don't like exclusive stuff. I just, that's just not me. So I said, well, fine. But I said, my network is, not just black. I work with all kinds of pastors from all kinds of backgrounds. I don't believe in segregation. I don't like it. Okay, no problem. So I assembled a group, and it was a fairly small and intimate group. It was a somewhat mixed group, but it was a tremendous blessing. And we all got to know each other. We all got to really be a blessing to one another. And it really solidified my relationship with a lot of people because I got to spend 10 days of intimate time with them, experiencing the wonders of the Holy Land. So I may start doing it again, but that's a matter for prayer right now. And I'll let you all know how that develops. I got to talk to a guy the last guy who approached me and said, man, would you be willing to do this? I said, let's talk when I get back. So at any rate, okay, look. So two quick things in the time I've got remaining. I should have known this was going to primarily be about my trip to Israel. Liberation Day was apparently yesterday, or was it Tuesday? But at any rate, Liberation Day, when President Trump is implementing these tariffs, let me just say for the record, I fully support his tariff policies because, now I have to tell you, I used to be a free market guy. I'm still a free market person, but forgive me, free trade guy. I bought into this sort of traditional kind of conservative Republican notion that, the best way to enhance everybody is for trade to be completely free. And so, for America to not impose tariffs on countries so that, we don't skew the marketplace. But nobody ever talked about the fact that every other country was charging high tariffs to us. Folks, right now, we have close to a $1 trillion trade deficit. $1 trillion. Now, let me explain what that means. I'm sure you all know, but let me just say it just so you kind of hear it with your ears. That means that $1 trillion in wealth in America is leaving our country and going somewhere else. Now, we sell more than $1 trillion worth of goods, but in terms of the trade balance is the difference between how much goods we sell overseas versus how much goods we buy from overseas. And we are buying far more than we are selling by $1 trillion. That means that more of our money is going out of our country into other nations than is coming to us from those nations. What President Trump is trying to do is create some kind of balance and say, no. Oh, and by the way, that's just one thing, which is bad, okay? Which is bad. But this is even worse. It's destroyed all of our manufacturing, pretty much. All of our manufacturing has gone overseas because other nations are charging big tariffs. And so if you want to sell to those countries, you need to manufacture in those countries, because if you don't, you're going to pay a large tariff to sell your goods there. But on the other hand, our tariffs have remained relatively low. So it's easy to sell your goods to us. Guess who else has low tariffs for the United States of America, with whom we've gotten along another reason, Israel. Yes, Israel. While some countries are charging 25, 30, 40, 50% on some goods, Israel's charging, I think it's like 16%. So President Trump's move here is to create more parity and to get our trade deficit down so that more wealth is coming into our country than is leaving our country, and that the manufacturing base that is so important to the average middle class family comes back to America so that the goods are being produced right here in our own country. And I forget the number, but trillions of dollars of corporate wealth is already pouring back into the country. Now, for all those people who are frightened by this, for all those people, the Wall Street types and all this, who think, oh, this is going to be a disaster, and all these leftists, frankly, who are running around telling this is going to devastate the world economy, I guarantee it's not. I guarantee it's not. You know why it's not? Because what did the president say? You lower your tariffs, we'll lower ours. You maintain high tariffs, we're going to create high tariffs. Any country that's got any sense is going to realize, well, wait a minute, we've got to allow American goods into our country more easily, and we're going to have to lower our tariffs in order to meet President Trump's initiative. It's going to, believe me, it's going to all wash out. But in the meantime, the money is flooding back into our country. I mean, these trillion-dollar investments in our country, folks, that means jobs. That means that's the real creation of wealth. Biden tried to create wealth by printing and borrowing money. You cannot create wealth by printing and borrowing money. All you can do is destroy wealth. That's how you destroy it. Because we're paying close to $1 trillion a year. Now, think about this, $1 trillion deficit and close to $1 trillion a year in interest payments. I mean, that's $2 trillion of American wealth going out the door. I mean, folks, I really do believe that President Trump is a kind of savant, a genius on this stuff. But you don't need to be a genius to understand this. When you got more of our money going out of the door than coming in, what does it do? It impoverishes us all. I mean, you know, we blame lots of people for the fact that there was a time when one person employed in a family could support that family. Usually the father working could support that family, and moms could be stay-at-home moms, and they had plenty of money to do what they needed to do. They didn't live like kings and queens, but they could feed themselves, clothe themselves, have a house, take a vacation. They could do all the kinds of things that normal people want to do. And then the economy shifted, and suddenly you can't do any of that without a two-person income in the home. Well, part of that is because so much of the wealth of our country is leaving America. Part of that is because our government has been so busy trying to create some kind of socialist paradise that it has literally devalued the dollar, so that you've got to earn a lot more of those dollars in order to do what you used to be able to do with a lot fewer of them. Which means now you don't need one income, you need two in a home in order to, unless one person in the home is really making a lot of money, you need two incomes in order for that home to operate. I see all kinds of good things happening as a result of these policies. So, folks, I just encourage you all, let's support the president and give an opportunity to get these things worked out, because I really do believe, what President Trump is saying. I believe we're about to see an economic renaissance in our country, the likes of which we have not seen maybe ever. I mean, these are bold, new ideas that the president is engaging. But I guarantee you, they're going to work out for the better. Based on his track record and based upon my rudimentary understanding of economics, I'm not an economist, but I mean, I do understand basic market economics, and that's part of the problem. You got a lot of people in our country who don't, because they weren't ever taught market economics. They're taught socialism. Which brings me to my final point. Gavin Newsom has implemented a new policy now where he is going to charge, the cost of your speeding ticket if you're caught speeding will be less if you have less income and more if you have more income. Now, I've heard a lot of commentary on this. By the way, I didn't get much news while I was away because, I mean, we're moving all the time, A, and B, you don't have American television there. And I just didn't have a whole lot of time to be combing through the news like I do when I'm at home. But what I haven't heard anybody say is this, and I always like to try to bring you a sort of a perspective that you're not getting anywhere else. People just say, well, this is socialism, and that's true, it is. But understand the premise it's based on. It is based on the premise that America is a socially and racially and economically unjust nation that controls who gets wealth and who doesn't. And therefore, the individuals who don't have money because the nation is systemically racist, systemically sexist, systemically unjust. That's why they don't have money. And so it's not fair to ask them to pay what a person who has money pays, because the person who has money, the person who has become affluent or wealthy, has it because the system is biased in that person's favor. Not because one person worked hard and one person didn't. One person got an education, another person didn't. One person started a business, the other person didn't. One person sacrificed and saved and refused to buy, and the other person didn't. It's not because of any of that. You know, a friend of mine who's gone home to be with the Lord now started a fast food pizza and sub chain up in New England, and built it from one store to 360 stores. And he said people treat him like he was just always wealthy. He said, but my wife and I worked 15, 16 hours a day in that first sub shop and put the same amount of hours in when we opened the second one, the same amount of hours in. He said, and basically we worked ourselves to a frazzle trying to build this business. And then when it finally got to a point where it was kind of growing exponentially and we found ourselves now really having some money, suddenly we're somehow a different breed of people. He said, but nobody saw and nobody cared about the fact that when other people were out partying, we were in our little shop cleaning up to make sure we were ready for the next day that was started for us about pretty much at the crack of dawn, with very little to show for it. But no. That's not why they got wealthy. They got wealthy because they're white and because the system benefited them. And somebody else is not wealthy because they're black or they're a woman or they're Hispanic and the system is not benefiting them. Folks, this is a Marxist worldview. And that's what it's basically saying. The person who can't pay the $150 speeding ticket, and I've paid a few of them, Lord have mercy. But the person who can't pay a $150 speeding ticket can't pay a $150 speeding ticket not because of anything they've done or not done, but because of you and me. It's our fault. We've created a system that has held them back. And we shouldn't expect them to pay what somebody else pays. See, that's the mindset behind it. And it's sick. and it's totalitarian and it's tyrannical. It may sound so cute and so nice. Oh, we're only going to charge people based on their ability to pay. Yeah, right. Okay. And these are the people who claim to be so much against discrimination. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today. I'm glad to be back with you. I really am. And you all pray for me because it's going to probably take me a couple of days to get myself really together. But I'm back. I'm home. I'm glad to be here. I went to bed early last night and woke up at 4 a.m. because, of course, my time clock, 7 hours difference, my body clock is still trying to make the adjustment. But praise God, I'm back on American soil. And as much as I love Israel and as much as I enjoyed this foreign trip, I love America. This is my home, and I am glad to be here. My counsel to you has not changed. My admonition has not changed. Stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side. Don't forget, I'll be preaching this coming Sunday, 943 Canal Drive in Chesapeake, Virginia at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Tune in about 11:15 for the live stream, or come and join with us as I share with my congregation about Israel. And I'm preaching a 3-part series leading up to Resurrection Sunday called The Path of Life. And Sunday I'll be preaching The Path of Prayer as the first part in that series. God bless everybody.